Doncic just had last night one of the greatest games in NBA history. And I want to talk about why it's a big sign that the Dallas Mavericks have to do more to support Luka. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
The number one place for your daily basketball fix, NBA Central. Hosted by the one and only CEO Haize.
What's going on, basketball fans? Luka Doncic just put together one of the most historic stat lines in NBA history, scoring 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, and a block in an overtime win against the New York Knicks. And while that's all fine and dandy and it's amazing and Luka should be celebrated, and Luka is very well on his way to getting another statue in Dallas like Dirk Nowitzki just got. But one of the biggest issues with this Dallas team is that Luka does not have the supporting staff to truly, in my opinion, be a championship contender. Luka is flawless in many ways, right? Yeah, there's been the thing of he's a difficult player to play with, and how is Dallas going to get players that want to play with Luka Doncic? And that whole mindset to me of like players don't want to play with Luka kind of baffles me, because it's not like Luka isn't a willing passer, right? He's not a player like some of the players in the league that are just so ball dominant that they do so selfishly. I truly do believe that if you give Luka Doncic a team around him that matches his energy, not his skill level, because he's a great talent. He's one of the best talents and an MVP candidate. You don't necessarily it's going to be very hard to match the talent of Luka Doncic. But if you give him players that want it as bad as him, right? A team that is a little bit more formidable, the sky really is the limit for the Dallas Mavericks team. Now, the Dallas Mavericks do have some history in their franchise of winning a championship with just a scrappy team when they beat the Miami Heat in the finals. But Luka is so young right now, right? That's you don't want to waste the youth of a player. Luka Doncic is 23 years old, has not even entered his prime yet, and he's putting together one of the best seasons in the NBA right now, averaging over 30 points per game, over 8 rebounds, over 8 assists on 50% shooting from the field. Luka is a beast, and we all know it. We see it. He's a monster. A true shooting percentage of 61%, which is huge. And one of the most efficient players as well in the NBA. That's why when people say things like, well, who's going to want to play with Luka, it really baffles me, right? And that's more of a fan mindset than anything else, because Luka Doncic is a player that really, with the makeup of almost any team, can fit in and it's so many different ways that you can build a roster around Luka Doncic just because of how his versatility as a player. But the fact of the matter remains that to be seen is, are the Dallas Mavericks going to do that? Is Luka going to be one of those players that unfortunately sits around and hovers, in kind of, a playoff team every single year just by the nature of having him on your team? He's going to be a playoff, you're going to be a playoff team. But when you look at the other aspects of the game of basketball and the other aspects of building a team, the Dallas Mavericks have left so much to be desired for Luka Doncic, and he really should be asking for more. There were videos and things that other people and content creators have put out about Luka visibly being frustrated sometimes by the performance of his teammates. The Dallas Mavericks have to put a better team around Luka Doncic. And it's easier said than done, right? It's easy for me playing armchair GM to come up here and say the Mavericks should do this, the Mavericks should do that. It's very much harder to put together a championship team than some fans will ever realize or want to admit. But the Dallas Mavericks have to find a way. They're too good right now to really try to build through the draft. And so you have to try to attract marquee free agents, trade for those players to really bring players that you need to build a true championship contender around Luka Doncic. And Luka is so good at 23 years old that I would not be surprised if somehow the Mavericks find a way to get themselves into the finals just by the strength of Luka Doncic going the hell off. But when you look at the Dallas Mavericks, they sit 6th in the Western Conference. Sure, they're only 3 games back from being the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And as we've seen with the parity in this year's NBA, anything is possible. But you do not want to waste a generational talent in Luka Doncic by failing to put a team around him that can really be that surefire championship team. And over the next couple of years, especially as Luka on that contract and gets closer to the years start coming off that contract, the Dallas Mavericks are going to be pressed to make sure that they find a way to put that championship team around Luka Doncic. You're talking about a guy that put together a stat line that everyone in the NBA had to take notice and see. And of course, yeah, that's rare, right? That's absolutely rare. But you do not want to overlook the talent that you have in Luka. Listen, there are teams right now they wish. You look back at that trade Atlanta made, right? That ended up getting them Trae Young and the draft pick that became Cam Reddish to send Luka there. And the Atlanta Hawks got completely and utterly fleeced in that deal, right? And we all know there was more going into that deal than it just being straightforward. And we all know that, right? Especially if you've been around the NBA for long enough. But you don't want to continue to waste the talent that is Luka Doncic. Can the Dallas Mavericks do that, right? Like I said, I would not be surprised in any stretch if the Dallas Mavericks, maybe not this season, maybe in another season or whatever else, find themselves in the NBA Finals just by Luka deciding, no, we're not losing. But to be that surefire championship level team, the Dallas Mavericks are going to have to really look to improve the roster overall. They have some talent on the roster, right? I don't want to make it seem like the roster's all crappy because it's not. But in an improving landscape in the NBA where parity is at an all-time high, you have to find a better balance on your roster. Christian Wood, I love the Christian Wood addition to the Dallas Mavericks. He's having a really solid season, averaging almost 18 points per game, 8 rebounds a game, and shooting the ball pretty efficiently himself. Spencer Dinwiddie, a nice piece as well on this team. Maxi Kleber, another player, even though he's out, that I really like on this team. But this team doesn't have necessarily the balance or the talent on it to where you can look at them and bet on them to be able to be a championship level team or even a Western Conference Finals team. And while the report came out a little bit earlier, a couple of weeks ago, that Trae Young may be the next star to demand a trade, not that I'm saying that Luka may demand a trade himself, but you got to look at, you cannot waste a talent like Luka Doncic. And not that the Dallas Mavericks are just wasting it, not trying to put anything around him. They've tried. They've gone out. They've remade that roster probably 3 times in the last 4 years. But they got to find a better balance if they want to really take advantage and build a possible dynasty around a generational talent in Luka Doncic. Let me know what you guys think on that one down below. Do you agree, disagree? Do you think that the Dallas Mavericks have done enough? Do you think they need to do more? Do you think I'm tripping? Let me know what you guys think. But also, let's celebrate the historic stat line by Luka Doncic, who's one of the best players by far in the NBA. Make sure you guys are following me at CEO Haize. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns to the show, NBACentralShow@gmail.com. If you want to leave any voicemails or feedback, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. But thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of NBA Central. I'm Haize. Love you guys, man. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.